No.
They're working through it? No, I guess we don't want to do that. The AC in here is kind of loud.
I think you'd have to go to maintenance, and I think you'd probably have a riot if you turned it off.
Then perhaps we can learn to live with it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to now do the legal mumbo jumbo, so I have permission to use this footage of you on the air. I'm explaining. Matt Kardelsky, I'm doing an independent film production on the shooting death of Bill Simpson and the events of Vider and Beaumont in 93, 94, etc. And on. I'm not with a TV network. I'm an independent producer, although I do hope to sell it later. I'm not going to be able to compensate you in any way now or later. Are you okay with that?
That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, and if you can pretend that I'm sitting here.
Okay.
You know, looking at the lens.
Okay.
Okay. Just if you can tell me about, tell me what it's like, what it was like for you growing up in Beaumont, and tell me what you remember, what you know about the town of Vider.
Beaumont is it's a medium-sized community, relatively close-knit. It has a lot of characteristics of living in a small town, but at the same time it has some metropolitan characteristics. It's close to Houston. It also has a lot of small-town atmosphere. You know a lot of people in your neighborhood, in your area. Vider is a very small East Texas town, probably about 20 miles from Beaumont. They also are a close-knit community. Generally, they keep to themselves to a certain extent. I think Vider has a bad reputation from things that may have happened a long time ago. I don't think that is appropriate now. I don't think that those actions still occur in Vider at the present time. There's more of a connection between Vider and Orange County than Beaumont. It's essentially two different communities.
Okay, so would you agree with the statement that there's a lot of white flight from Beaumont into Vider and Lumberton and areas like that?
I don't think necessarily in the Vider area. There's been a lot of movement to the Lumberton areas and the Hampshire Fannett areas. Essentially, a lot of the movement and a lot of the growth in the Beaumont area goes west. Some north to a certain extent up in the Lumberton area.
Did you ever, if you can answer the question as if I didn't ask it, like, you know, well, you can understand what I mean. Did you ever in your life, and you probably haven't, this is not a trick question, ever see this alleged billboard outside of Vider? Nigger, don't let the sun set on your in Vider. Have you ever seen it? Or
no.
If you answered as if I hadn't asked it.
I have never seen any kind of derogatory or racist billboards in the Vider area as far back as I can remember, and I grew up in this area.
Have you ever heard of them?
I've heard people talk about them, but I've never heard or seen them. I've never heard them or seen them myself.
Okay, that's fair. That's probably what I figured you were going to say. Nobody's seen them. As if I hadn't asked it, how would you respond to this statement by Michael Lowe, the Klansman, that he's got supporters, members high up in the Vider and Beaumont government and police?
I would disagree with that. I don't know of anything that indicates that that's true. I don't know of any evidence that shows that there's any kind of racist or Klan infiltration in any of the police departments around here. I think that's totally false.
You know why he would say such a thing?
No.
Okay. Night it happened. Bang. Bill Simpson shot.
September the 1st of 1993, as the evidence played out, Kamal Lede, Clinton Cheeks went to a party. They stayed at this party for a while and met David Jerome Brown and Benjamin Brown. Benjamin Brown and David Brown and some of their other friends had previously that summer bought a Tech 9 machine pistol. They had it with them that night. They got a ride from Kamal, who was driving a black Beretta. As they were driving around, they ended up in the vicinity of Victoria and Royal. Standing on the corner of Victoria and Royal were Lydia Faye Washington and her daughter, and Bill Simpson. Jerome, in his statement, stated that he previously knew Lydia and had loaned her some money. As the evidence played out, and Clinton Cheeks testified, Jerome got out of the car and had the Tech 9 pistol with him. Benjamin got out of the car right after Jerome. Both boys pulled their shirts up over their faces. Jerome went up to Lydia and Bill, and according to Lydia, told Bill and Lydia to lay it down, to give them up their money. Bill told him no, that he didn't have any, and I think the evidence showed he had about $2 or somewhere thereabouts. At which time Jerome started shooting. He shot Bill, I think 5 times, 4 times while Bill was standing. Bill fell, and he shot him 1 time while he was laying on the ground. He shot Lydia 1 time in the leg. Her injuries were so bad that her leg was subsequently amputated. They then ran, got back in Kamal's car, and drove off.
All right, let me change shots here. If we could talk about Sonora and any of the backstory, like the money they owed, and did you think that they recognized Bill and all this talk of everybody thought Bill had some kind of bonus money? When Kamal initially parked his car over on Victoria, an individual named Sonoria Gunner came up to the car for whatever reasons known only to Sonoria. They kind of brushed her off and went to Lydia. In Jerome's statement, he stated that he felt Lydia owed him some money, he had loaned her some money. They may have recognized Bill. Bill Simpson was a very distinguished-looking individual because he was so tall. He was a big man. Can we stop for a second?
Sure.
The backstory on Lydia may have owed them money, and that if they knew Bill and the Sonoria.
Yeah. Jerome claimed in his statement that he had loaned Lydia some money, approximately $200, and stated that when they were driving around that he saw Lydia and recognized her. Some of the evidence seemed to also indicate that they may have recognized Bill Simpson. Bill was a very tall man, he was big, he was easily recognizable, very distinguished and distinct looking, approximately 7 feet tall with a full beard. He had gotten a lot of media exposure prior to this shooting, and I think they may have recognized him and thought he had some money on him too. He had been on the Donahue show, he had been on TV a lot in interviews, and I think they may have thought he had some money on him too, and that made him an additional target.
Yeah, did we talk about Sonoria?
You did the first.
Yeah, the first. Sonoria is essentially, Sonoria was just kind of standing out there. She, when they first initially parked the car, she was standing there and walked up to the car for whatever reasons. They brushed her off. She identified the car as a black Beretta. That was the significance of her testimony in the investigation, is that we knew from her testimony, because she was standing right next to where the car parked, that they were driving a black 2-door Chevy Beretta.
Okay, tell me about the Tech 9, the criminal's weapon of choice. You said that that's like second runner-up to another kind of gun, and it's real cheap, and is obviously only for crime.
A Tech 9 is one of the guns that was addressed in one of the recent weapons bills passed in Congress. It's a machine pistol. I'm not a ballistics expert, but it is an inexpensive gun, and at the time it was relatively easy to get on the streets. It shot a lot of rounds, and it shot it shot jacketed bullets that left an impression when they left the barrel. That's one way we were able to identify the gun, because we took the jackets and the slugs that were recovered and compared them to the gun that was recovered, and we knew that that was the gun.
And now I'm rolling. The question is, can you tell me about the culture of that neighborhood? What do you think motivated those guys to do what they did, and some of the stories around the name Zeno?
The neighborhood essentially is a kind of a lower class, lower middle class neighborhood. It's an older neighborhood here in town, near downtown. There was a group of young men that were troublemakers in that area. And one of the key figures in that group was Michael Wayne Victor, also known as Michael Wayne Zeno. He was initially accused of the crime, but the evidence after a couple of weeks showed that he really had no involvement in it. That's essentially his role. After some of the statements were taken, it was discovered that he was initially reported to have been out there and possibly did the crime, but after they talked to several of the victims, they said, no, it wasn't a Zeno boy that did it. So is that what you had? Or?
Yeah. Okay. Now, possible fighter link, supremacist link.
After the evidence showed that Michael Wayne Victor did not commit this crime, there were some stories floating around that there were some conspiracies, but there was absolutely no evidence pointing to any conspiracy in this case. When we got information of where the gun was hidden, all the actors involved gave statements regarding involvement, and Jerome Brown gave a written confession that was introduced in his trial, stating that he was the one that shot Bill Simpson and that he shot him for reasons involving money owed by Lydia Washington that had absolutely nothing to do with any conspiracy. This was a street killing. It was a senseless street killing, and there's no evidence showing anything else but that.
What, from your experience, what led up to, I mean, from give me your money to bang bang, what do you think triggered the trigger? What do you think led to them instead of just, you know, what led to that act of extreme violence?
They told him no.
As if I didn't ask it.
They told, Lydia and Bill told Jerome they weren't going to give up their money. That's why he shot him. This was a street robbery.
Okay. Tell me about Lydia Faye Washington, just what you know about her.
Lydia was a resident in this neighborhood. When Bill moved back, she was nice to him, she befriended him, and just happened to be standing out on that street corner when she got shot. She testified in both trials, and she lost her leg. This was a tragic event for her as well. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Okay, the next question is, one of the defendant's lawyers was putting forth the story that Bill, the story that Bill was in that neighborhood to buy drugs.
I don't think Bill was out there buying drugs. He only had $2 in his pocket. I think he was out there after he moved back trying to meet people in the neighborhood, and I think he was just trying to meet and talk to Lydia Washington. I don't think if he were trying to buy drugs, he'd have more than $2 in his pocket. I don't think that there's any truth to that.
Okay, now, wasn't it I don't have anyone on tape seeing this, but there's the theory that if it was a planned hit, why all the shots in the legs went out in the heads? Did you guys investigate bullet methods of shooting of an execution versus just a robbery?
The Tech-9 is not a very accurate pistol. Its barrel is short, so the bullet doesn't get a long ride. I don't think this was a planned hit. All the evidence shows it wasn't a planned hit. The evidence showed that Jerome was out there trying to get some money. And the way that Bill was shot showed a random pattern of shooting. The fact that Lydia was shot standing next to him, I don't think that any evidence points to any kind of planned thing other than Jerome planned to get out and rob somebody.
Got recently
In terms of the way the evidence played out, we had an individual that was a young man in the area that got in some trouble. And he told the police, he said, "Hey, I can give y'all the gun that killed Bill Simpson." He told them where the gun was. The police went out there, were looking for the gun. Subsequently questioned Benjamin Brown, who finally showed them where the gun was. The gun was in Benjamin's house or his mother's house. I can't remember exactly where. Ballistics test proved that that was the gun. Lydia Washington initially could not identify the shooters accurately. She thought it was Michael Wayne Victor, but at the time that she thought it was Michael Wayne Victor, she was in the hospital, she was under medication because she just had her leg amputated. Several weeks later when she got out, she said no, it wasn't Michael Victor. Lydia wasn't really sure who shot her. We did not put Lydia on the stand in our case in chief. The defense called Lydia to the stand, and the defense lawyer asked her, "You don't know who shot you, do you?" And she said, "Yeah, I do. He's sitting right there." Lydia recognized Jerome Brown when she testified because she recognized his eyes, and that's what she said in the trial. I think that's the first time she had seen him since the trial. She looked at him and saw him and said, "That's him." It was a big surprise to the defense. I don't think that they expected that at all. But she was, at that time, very positive that Jerome was the one that shot her. And it corresponded with Jerome's confession, and it corresponded with the statements of Clinton Cheeks, who testified for the state.
Tell me about the alleged connection between the daughter and maybe some of the gang members in that neighborhood.
I think there was some reports, and I don't know if they're true or not, that Lydia's daughter had gone out with one of the Zeno boys. That's the extent that I know about that.
Okay. How did it affect your investigation, or the investigation in general? The outside media's scrutiny and their reporters asking the same thing, you're trying to get to an NAACP when they came in.
Any time that we have a pending case, we are under strict rules and instructions to not talk about that case until the case is resolved, either by trial or after it's been resolved on appeal. The media in this case, there was extensive media coverage, there was extensive outside investigations. We just tried to ignore it as best we could and go about trying our case as best that we can. It was important for us to get the jury all the facts that we could in this particular case. The defense had access to all the same facts that we did, and they never brought forth any conspiracy theories or anything of that nature. We tried to ignore the media and any outside influences as best that we could, unless they were based in fact, and there was nothing that we saw that was based in fact.
Now, when we first talked to you, we had read his statement. If you could read that on camera, just open the book up and read it, and I'll probably cover it with...
Let me see if I can find that.
And you tell me, like, this is so-and-so statement.
The statement of, you're talking about Jerome Brown's statement, no wait, no, that's, let me see. His statement, May 12th, 1994. My name is David. I'm going to skip certain parts of it because there's a lot of information in here where it talks about his telephone number and he goes to high school. My name is David Jerome Brown. During the summer of 1993, possibly in June, I loaned this lady that I know living on Orange Street at the time almost $200. She told me she needed the money to pay somebody that she was in debt with. She told me that she got her welfare check on the first of the month and that she would pay me then. I was on Orange Street at my Aunt Cynthia's house when I loaned her the money. I had been knowing this lady for a long time because I used to see her all the time in the North End. I told her whenever she got it, I wanted my money. In September, myself, my cousin Benjamin Brown, Bimbo, and Clinton Cheeks had gone to a party at Scott Bell's house at a street off Highland. We stayed at the party until about 12 midnight. where we left with a friend of mine named Kamal Aday, who was driving a 1992 Chevrolet Beretta, black with red stripes, two-door. Kamal was driving, I was in the back seat behind Kamal. Bimbo was in the back seat behind Clinton, who was in the front passenger. Bimbo had brought a Tech 9 with him that he had gotten from Wendell Radford's house. The gun was brought by Toby's brother, Daryl Hayward, after myself. Toby and Bimbo had given him the money to buy it. We had gone to Easy Pawn on College Street where Daryl paid for the gun. It was black with a plastic handle, one clip that holds 32 rounds, in a black plastic case that looks like a briefcase. After we bought the gun, we went to Toby's house, then to the sand pits where he shot it in the air. I gave $80 for the purchase of the gun. Daryl told us we didn't have to pay him for buying the gun, but to just let him use it and keep it at his house, and we all agreed to this. We got in the car with Kamal and Bimbo put the gun under the passenger seat. Kamal knew that the gun was there. We left and they were going to bring me home on Orange Street, where I was living with my aunt, but instead of going on Orange, Kamal drove to Victoria because he wanted to jack somebody. I don't know who the guy was that he wanted to jack, but it was a dude that drives a small white car, possibly a Fiestiva, who hangs around Victoria selling drugs. Kamal drove to Royal and Victoria and stopped in front of a house on Victoria. After Kamal stopped the car, Bimbo and I got out of the car and saw the lady that I had loaned the money to at the corner of Victoria and Royal with about 5 other people. I asked her about the money that she owed me, and she told me that she did not have it. Bimbo had taken the gun out, and while I was talking to the lady, he gave me the gun. The lady had started to argue, and she backed up and pulled something out of her purse and was running towards a large man that was standing on the corner. And that is when I shot her in the leg, I think. I continued to shoot at her, and at this time I did not realize that I had hit him because he was still standing up. I knew I had hit him after he had fallen to the ground. As he was laying on the ground, I walked up and shot him in the leg. I shot him about 5 times throughout the shooting, but only one time while he was on the ground. After I shot the man, we ran to the car and jumped in. That's essentially what Jerome's story was.
Was there other versions you heard?
Clinton testified for the state that Jerome got out of the car, Benjamin got out of the car, and when they got out of the car, they pulled their shirts up over their faces. That Jerome had the gun when, and they walked up to the people at the street corner. Lydia's statement when they got up to the street corner was when Jerome got up there, he said, "Give me what you got." And Bill Simpson said no. And at that point, Jerome started shooting. He then, after he shot him, he turned around, ran, and got back in the car with his cousin Benjamin. That's essentially a compilation from what Clinton Cheek said and from what Lydia said.
You can put your hand down and reach over, and then the other hand wasn't on it, and then flip the page.
Like that?
Yeah, as if you were reading it. And then I'm gonna do it. I guess my last question for you is then, what is the one thing you'd like the world to remember about the shooting of Bill Simpson? Or last couple things, whatever it is.
It was a random, senseless act of street violence that didn't have to happen because of the nature of crime.
Wait, can I change my shot? I realize that, and get you framed up right. 5, 4, 3, 2.
This was a random, senseless act of street violence that didn't have to happen, but it did because of the nature of crime today and essentially the nature of the society that we live in. But it didn't have to happen. It was senseless, meaningless death from a guy that didn't deserve it.
What would you say to the conspiracy theorists who feel this has to be part of something bigger?
There's no evidence whatsoever that I've seen, and I've seen everything on paper involving this case, and there was no evidence supporting that The defense saw the same evidence I had, and they had no evidence supporting a conspiracy. This was all the evidence points to a random street crime.
Hey, I'm doing fine. We just finished with law today. Where are you? Oh, so I can bring by a sign? Okay. I mentioned it to Burgess, told him to come over. He wasn't sure what it was. I told him, just one thing.
That's right. Here we go. And you turn it sideways so we can see it full profile.
Like that.
Okay, now you turn it around the other side. A little back that way. Here you go, turn around again. I'll do it at 360. Okay. If you could turn around and point it right at the camera, almost like you were like telling me the camera, like, this is stick up. Okay, now pull it down and then back up. Down.
Let's say down.
Down. No, I mean, I'm sorry. I'm doing it being a bad drink. Okay. Physically drop it down.
Oh.
Okay, a little further down, I can see you.
Oh.
Okay, back up. And then point it like right at the camera. Okay, back down.
This is really uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Okay, bring it back down. Back up. Alright, and you gotta put the slap the magazine in it.
I don't know that I do. It's here.
If I put myself at the same
There.
position you are, I should be able to fake it.
That's it.
What did you do at the office today? Well, son. Enough from a TV network. I'm gonna do this all on my own. I work in corporate video, and every couple of years you'll hear about somebody taking their little nickels and dimes and making a movie, and they then become a big deal. Well, I'm hoping I'm the next one that happens to. That I think gave me what I wanted. David, OJ. Everybody really likes OJ. These guys nobody liked.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
That was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, very.
Plus, I thought it was so